I want to play what happened on Saturday in Pickens, South Carolina. Lindsey Graham, who was one of Donald Trump's most ardent supporters, invited the former president, the candidate, to his home state, and he was booed. Listen to this. Graham was booed.
Thank you. Thank you. I come to like President Trump, and he likes himself, and we got that in common.
We love Senator Graham. We're gonna love him. We're gonna love him. I know, it's half and half, but when I need some of those liberal votes, he's always there to help me get them, okay?
I'm not sure that was the most helpful thing for Trump to say, but as you comment on this and bring in your reporting, I just want to show, this is Pickens County, South Carolina. Trump got 74.5% of the vote in 2020. Lindsey Graham was right there with them. I mean, just about the same. So this is a place where Lindsey Graham is very popular. So it opens the question of what you were talking about, Eva, which is that the people who are at the core of the support for Donald Trump, they want to hear his conspiracies. And Lindsey Graham, he supports a lot of things for Donald Trump. He does not support the notion that 2020 was wrongly called.
He doesn't, but he's also been all over the board on everything from Trump. If you think back to the timeline of Lindsey Graham and Trump, as you know well, when he was running initially in South Carolina, look, it's one of the reasons that Lindsey Graham has embraced President Trump so often, because he needs his support there. I think a couple different things. Boos in audiences at Trump rallies certainly are interesting, but that is a corner of South Carolina that's very close to Georgia. We do not know how many South Carolina voters were booing necessarily. It's beside the point. The reality here is that it reminded me of going to Kentucky sometimes and hearing Republican voters boo Mitch McConnell at Trump rallies. They like Donald Trump. They don't necessarily like other Republicans.
Okay, fair point. But Mitch McConnell has very much separated himself from Lindsey Graham. And my question is, if you're in South Carolina and you have somebody who has embraced almost everything and actually endorsed Donald Trump, and the only thing that he doesn't support Trump on is the 2020 election, what does that say about the electorate and about Trump supporters?
Well, Lindsey Graham has been crosswise with Trump as many times as he has hugged him closely. And so I think he's sort of a complicated figure on the right. And I think if you spend a lot of time consuming conservative media, they're very negative on Lindsey Graham. He is mocked. He is a boogeyman. He is not a beloved figure on the right. And interestingly, he's also not a beloved figure on the left, because he has been booed as President Biden mentioned him in a speech. He's sort of this universal figure who, for whatever reason, gets people upset.
One of the we're going to take a quick break, but I will just say that one of the areas where they don't agree is on Ukraine.
Yes.
And Graham is still in the old McCain camp, which is that you got to get in there and you got to stay and you got to defend democracy. And Trump is now saying, no, America first.
He's a hawk. That used to be a thing in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that used to be a thing. New details on the lengths Donald Trump went to pressure state officials to overturn the 2020 election. Remember this? Then Arizona Governor Doug Ducey turning down a call with a Hail to the Chief ringtone as he certified his state's election results. He later confirmed that he did speak to Trump around that time in late 2020. CNN is now learning more about exactly what Trump wanted to talk to Ducey about. CNN's Kristen Holmes joins me now with her reporting. Kristen, what are you hearing?
Yeah, so we did know, as you said, about this phone call, but it was never really clear what exactly the two men talked about. Ducey really kept quiet about it. Now, we are learning from sources close to the situation, who are familiar with his private conversations, that behind closed doors, the former governor of Arizona said that Trump was trying to pressure him into finding some sort of voter fraud to help overturn the results of the 2020 election in Arizona. As you'll remember, he lost by about 11,000 votes in that state and was remarkably surprised by those results. Now we also learned that Pence made several calls to then Governor Ducey, talking to him about the election results, although sources tell us that he was not actually pressuring Ducey. He was asking him to see if there was any voter fraud, tell him that he needed to report it appropriately if so. Pence was asked about that this weekend. Here's what he said.
I did check in with not only Governor Ducey, but other governors in states that were going through the legal process of reviewing their election results, but there was no pressure involved. I passed along that information to the president, and it was no more, no less than that.
Were you being pressured by Mr. Trump to get those, to influence Doug Ducey? And did you talk about this with the special counsel?
No, I don't remember any pressure.
So the other thing to point out here, we obviously have already known about this now infamous call with Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State in Georgia, that has been the subject of the special counsel's investigation. We have learned that this call with Ducey was not recorded, as that Raffensperger one was. Also, the special counsel has not reached out to Ducey about this interaction. But I do want to read you a statement from his press secretary. This is what he said. The governor stands by his action to certify the election and considers the issue to be in the rearview mirror. It's time to move on. Well, this is significant for a number of reasons, Dana. One is that Donald Trump is running for president again. And one of his core tenets of his campaign is that the 2020 election was rigged. So while it might be in the rearview mirror for Doug Ducey, who is now no longer the governor, it's not really in the rearview mirror for the rest of the American people when it comes to hearing this argument, hearing this pushing time and time again from the former president.
Yeah, despite, and you know this because you've reported this, despite the pleas from inside his own campaign to move on and stop talking about the past. Kristen, thank you so much for that reporting. My panel is back now. And Tamara, this extra data point about Arizona, how is that going to play? Is it just part of a cake that's baked politically?
Yeah, I don't know how it plays in terms of an investigation, but in terms of that cake, yeah, it's pretty well baked. People know that the former president was calling around all over the place, searching for some way to win an election that he lost. And his supporters, and even Republicans who had said that they were open to other people, are consolidating behind him as he has faced indictment because he has found this way to make himself a proxy for everyone's grievance, or, you know, if he's in trouble, then they're in trouble. And so they are coming to his defense.
And this is a candidate who was a candidate back in 2016, won that race. But while he was campaigning, our K-file has unearthed something that he said November 5th, 2016. At the time, he was referring to Hillary Clinton.
We could very well have a sitting president under felony indictment and ultimately a criminal trial. It would grind government to a halt.
Shoe, need other foot.
Well, this is a former president that has long been contradictory, and sometimes he even jokes openly about his own contradictions. I think, though, that Governor Ducey's response to this is very telling. Word to the governor, if he wanted to keep this secret, maybe not tell a Republican donor. The donor class is pretty gossipy, so that's why we all know about this now. But he doesn't really seem to want to engage in this anymore. Through a spokesperson, he said, listen, let's move on as a party. And that's the
Didn't deny it.
Didn't deny it. But that's the tightrope that they're walking here. This kind of conspiratorial politics in Arizona we saw was a real liability where Republicans suffered some losses. But at the same time, he doesn't want to ding Trump.